You can read while we're talking.
Okay, so we're back again. This is chapters 2 through 4 of The Night by Eli Weasley. Alright, and this time around, I'm gonna be your quote finder.
I'm gonna be the moderator.
I'm the multiple perspective.
And I am the summarizer.
I'm Brooke.
Noah Holloway.
Autumn Clemens. And India Jerome.
She didn't. Okay, so let's start it off. I guess I'll go first. I'm the
No,
quote.
I had to do the background information.
Oh,
Okay. So in the story, Ellie is transported to Auschwitz. Is that
Auschwitz.
Auschwitz? And Auschwitz is a network of German Nazi concentration camps in Polish territories during World War II. In 1933, Nazi power came into ruling, and they believed that Germans were radically superior, or people with blue eyes and blonde hair with pale complexions. These people were considered Aryans. The German authorities targeted other groups of people that they foresaw as inferior, and some of those people were the Jews, communists, socialists, Jehovah's Witnesses, and homosexuals. These were the many people that were persecuted. Jews were the majority, executed with over 6 million casualties, and most of the victims lived in countries that Nazi Germany influenced or eventually occupied, like Poland and Hungary. In concentration camps like Auschwitz, Jews and others were starved and held to the point where they were ravaging animals. Jews were burned in crematories and killed by Nazi soldiers and poisoned in holding showers. The Holocaust was an event in which the free detainment of the Axis powers' real and imagined political adversaries. Auschwitz is located in Poland, and Birkenau is basically Auschwitz II. It was the first camp in which Eli ventured to. Auschwitz was the largest concentration camp, containing over 1 million inmates or people. But eventually, Auschwitz was freed by Soviet troops in January 1945.
Good job.
all right. Now I'm gonna quote find. All right. First quote I have. All right. This quote comes from chapter 3. No, this quote comes from chapter 4. All right. Okay, here we go. I was nothing. Elijah says, I was nothing but a body, perhaps even less, a famished stomach. The stomach alone was measuring time. Elijah says this because he feels terrible about being in the situation that he is now. He feels like a concentration camp is a prison for him, and is only a death camp that he wishes to kill himself multiple times. He, in the first three or four pages of chapter 3, he says that he wants to kill him. He wants to kill himself before he steps in line to be decided if you're furnished or not. And he just feels horrible about the situation and just doesn't want to be there. All right. And next quote comes from chapter 3. It says, Never shall I forget that night, the first night in camp that turned my life into one long night, 7 times sealed. Never shall I forget that smoke. Never shall I forget the small faces of children whose bodies I saw transformed into smoke under a silent sky. Never shall I forget those flames that consumed my faith forever. Never shall I forget the nocturnal silence that deprived me of all eternity of the desire to live. Never. This is a really interesting quote because this talks about all of his all of the Jewish people that he's seen died in the camps. He feels so much remorse for them, and like when the night that he saw all the babies being dumped and burned, that really changed his entire life. And he was very young, and this influenced his entire life because he said after that moment he wanted to kill himself many times. And I like the first quote. he just doesn't feel the will to live. And then this experience of the concentration camp, it kills his innocence as a child because he was only 15, and it also kills his belief in religion as well. But him believing in God was another problem for him when he throughout the times that he saw the babies and the people getting killed. He just he questioned God a lot, and so the concentration camp experience just killed his trust in God for a lot. Alright?
I agree to what Noah said because the repeated saying of him saying never shall I forget, it just emphasizes the traumatic happenings that occurred, and once he entered Auschwitz, and once he saw those burnt children that came out of the crematory, and when people warned him, why were you such a fool to come here? Do you see where you're going to end up? And then they pointed at the chimney where the babies were burnt, and he saw them. It just traumatized him so much, and he just hated it to the point in which he questioned his own existence. And basically, him entering the camp will never leave his mind. It's too traumatic because of seeing the oppression against his people.
To what you were saying, I honestly agree. Couldn't have said it better.
Okay, so let's begin with our
Questions.
Okay,
No,
I was just gonna say look at me. Okay. As a summarizer from 2 through 4, in chapter 2 you see 2 to 4, I'm just gonna say 2. Elijah and his family are traveling to the concentration camps, and to travel there they had traveled by train, and it was just, they were in horrible conditions. They had very scarce amount of food, a lot of people in a small vehicle, and they had very little water, and they had to ration out their food.
And there was this one lady outside.
Yeah, and then there's a crazy lady. Well, I wouldn't say crazy, but she did kind of go crazy. She was separated from her family, by accident. And so from the ride to the concentration camp, she just kept yelling out something about a fire, and then the Jews were trying to calm her down, but some people were getting frustrated because there were other people in there, and she was just screaming about a fire. So, some people would kind of beat her to make her be quiet, and then people would try to help calm her down, but she just couldn't. And then when they finally arrived there, Elijah lied about his age. He said he was 18 and a farmer instead of 15 and a student. And so he could stick with his dad. So he was, and from 2 to 4, he was basically kind of stuck with his dad the whole time. They had got the same jobs and stuff. And they started seeing what was happening in the concentration camps, and bombings happened in the book, and Elijah got beat 25 lashes for witnessing a guard sleeping with Polish girls. And they have a friend named Stein, I think you spell it Stein, and he was having hope that his wife and children were okay, but then eventually when he got the reality check, he said the thing that kept him going was that his family was okay, but then when he found out that his family died, he kind of gave up hope and they couldn't find him, so we just assumed that he died. And from 2 to 4, Elijah and his dad was separated from his sister and mother, and I'm coming to the conclusion that the sister and mother are dead. And that's basically the summary of 2 to 4.
Okay, so I'm the multiple perspective, and I chose Marxism theory because this is basically a book about power. Who has the most power and who has the least amount. And in this case, the Germans have the most power and the Jews have the least. So they're in a position where they can't control their environment and the things that are being done to them. So yeah, this is why I chose Marxism theory, and that connects with the class. So we know that the Germans are on top and the Jews are at the bottom.
Okay, so I will start the questioning for chapters 2 through 4. And here we go. Did you agree with his decision to stay in line awaiting his demise instead of running to the wire fence when committing suicide?
I think I definitely don't agree with committing suicide there, because obviously since you know about the beetle surviving, he was shot, but they thought he was dead, and he survived. So obviously, if I'm Eliza, I'm remembering that moment and thinking maybe I can survive out of this. It might be tough, but this will test my endurance, faith, and determination. And so yes, I would have definitely I would have stayed in line and not committed suicide.
I would have ran out and tried to go over the gate, only because knowing him, at that moment he was thinking that he was going to get burned alive, and so I would have rather taken my own life and let somebody take it for me and be burned alive. So
I would agree with Brooke, because when I'm in the line, I would feel scared and a whole bunch of feelings would run through me. So I would at least try to free myself or kill myself instead of letting someone else kill me.
oh, and this is on page.
Especially out of hatred.
This is on page 42 to 43.
I agree with what Brooke was saying. Instead of letting you get the power of killing me, I could just do it myself. But I could kind of see where he was coming from, because it might be harder to do it yourself. And then you just giving up, You see what's going on and you're just like, I don't really care anymore. So I can see where he was coming from, but I don't necessarily agree with him.
Okay, so the second question, I think we answered this question multiple times, but I will just restate it. How do you think people felt about God's presence in the time of the hangings? Would you have lost faith in God and in His merciful ways, especially when the young boy, the pupil, when he got hanged at the end of chapter?
I'm gonna chime in and say I would have been, throughout that entire experience, I for sure would have just left my belief in God at the door of Auschwitz, because and since those Germans are Christians and they claim that they're God's people and they're doing God's work, but they're killing Jews, brothers of Christians is supposed to be, I would have been like, no, this is definitely not Christianity, or Judaism is for sure definitely not going to help me out in this position. So I would have just forgotten my belief in God when I was there.
I completely 100% agree with Noah. I felt like if I was in the predicament that they were, I probably would have just left my religion, questioned like, why is this happening to me? And you saying you believe in God, I'm saying I believe in God, and you're saying this is God's work, but why would God want to do this to me when it says in the Bible that He loves everybody and He is an all-knowing God, so He knows what's going on, and still my family, I'm getting separated from my family, I'm dying, they're burning babies, they're hanging people. So I definitely believe that it would have been really hard to keep faith, and then eventually you just lose hope, because it went on for a while.
I actually would have kept my faith, kind of. I would question, why would my God be doing this? But it really isn't His fault. It's the hatred in other people to be killing you based off of what you believe. So I don't really think that it's His fault for being something that you believe in. Instead, it's the Christian's fault.
Yeah, I agree with all of you, especially like on pages 71 to 72. The boy, he was he stood there. I mean, he hung there for over 30 minutes until he died, and they had to watch that. All of them had to watch that, and a voice was heard throughout the gallows, and someone said, "Where is he? Here, where is he?" And then Eli thought to himself, "Here he is. He is hanging here in this gallows." They were talking about God, and basically, I believe that they thought that God's merciful ways and His will was basically gone once they entered that concentration camp. Okay, so the third question is that what did you think would have happened to Eli and his father separately if an inmate didn't advise them to lie about their ages and why?
I for sure think it would have been death.
Death.
It obviously, I think it, because Eli's father probably had some gray hairs at 50, so they would have, the German doctor that was control of, I think he was in control of all of the concentration camps. He obviously would have known that he was definitely 50, and he would have died because he was too old. And then Eli, since he was 15, that's a pretty young age, actually. It's not an age to be doing 20-year-olds work or 18-year-olds work or 30-year-olds work. So they would have killed him too, along with, he would have gone into the children's side. So I think they both would have died.
Well, for the father, I think the father would have most definitely died because of his age, like Noah was saying. And for Eli, I think he either would have been maybe separated from his father or death. And yes.
I agree with both of you. I think they would have both died, and he would have followed the fate of the other children. And as before seen by the other children having been burned, he saw that he would have fallen in those steps of those other children, because I think that children were seen as useless, and the only way that they could have stayed alive was if they were fit, and then they were worked, and then they were useful to laboring for the German SS soldiers. And the father, he would have died too, because he would be labeled useful as well, just because of his old age, and that he couldn't do anything. Like later on in the chapter, when they were marching, his son had to teach him how to march, and from right to left and stuff. And so yeah. Also, so this is basically a general question. How were women treated in the camps? And this is on all chapters. I can go first. Women were inferior because in the beginning of the chapter, in one page they said that his place was at school and his sister's place was at home. And this is why I thought women were domestic people. And also, women were seen as useless as well. But women were actually like sexually used and exploited from like the co-op IDAC, from him sexually exploiting her and harassing her and being caught by Eli.
I would agree with that statement. They definitely thought less of women in these times. And I guess that's another reason why, didn't they separate the women from the men? Yeah, they probably separated the women because they thought, instead of like giving them work, we can do like tests on them, or basically not.
I agree with what you guys were saying, and already around those times, even not dealing with the concentration camps, women didn't really have all the rights that they have now, so entering them in the concentration camps didn't make it any better. And of course they had no power because they were Jewish, and then events like sexual assault happened, so it was just worse. And they were basically useless because they really only, in order to stay alive, not definitely, but in order to kind of have a chance of living, was your age, and you had to be a male because they needed your labor, but they didn't need that for women. And it kind of sucks because then you get sexually assaulted. You have no power and you have no voice. So they were definitely inferior. And it really is a sad situation to reminisce on.
And I have one more question too, but we for time purposes.
So just one more question.
So what was greater amongst the Jews, fear or hunger? And I asked this question because in one page there is
The man dies?
Yeah, a man basically dies because an alert sounded out throughout the camp, and they were all supposed to go back to their barracks. But this man, there was like soup sitting in the middle of the camp, and you couldn't leave your barrack. So this man, he went out and he risked his own life to like get some food because they were basically starving. But then before this, Eli said to him that fear was greater than starvation, and that's why nobody else went out there. Nobody else went out there and ate the soup. So how, if you were in this predicament, how would you go for the soup or would you stay away?
Well, and I know I'm a type of person and I love to eat. And I know I'm really cranky. I mean, they were starving. I mean, I've never had to go through something like that. But I feel like if I was in the predicament, I probably would have went for my food because I'm kind of a pride person. So number one, kind of going against the grain. And me, you know, I see the food, I smell it, I got to eat it, like all jokes aside. And I remember seeing this one picture of how skinny the people were in the concentration camps. And if you have a bowl of soup there, you probably gonna die anyway. And that's probably the way I would have looked at it. I'm gonna die anyway if I don't eat it, so I might as well get my food. So I personally think I would have went for the soup.
Like the man?
Yes. And I probably would have lost all my faith anyway.
This is a tough question because I love food. And I kind of agree with India. Yeah, I'm gonna get that soup.
Yeah.
But I feel like fear is something that you have in your mind. So you had to. So you had to.
They had guns on them.
I know.
But you might die anyway.
I know, but I would think of it like this: either get that soup and get shot, or stay in here and starve one day to eventually be free.
Yeah.
You understand
Yeah, I
what I'm
see what you're
saying?
saying.
I'll say to myself, like, one more second, one more, come on, one more. Like, just, I'll try to motivate myself. But I'm just saying this right now from my perspective, but I don't know how things will change with
Yeah.
all those factors.
Yeah. Because you never know what you're going to do in a predicament like that. I think I might go for the soup, but then, like, all of a sudden I might be like, you know what?
Come on, let's toughen this.
Yeah. Let's do it for my family.
All right. I think since obviously the Allies are attacking, and that means all the prisoners had hope that because the bombings were happening just then. All the prisoners had hope that they knew that the Allies were coming. So I for sure would have stayed in the bunker because I knew that since the bombings were coming, that means that the Allies are close, and that means there's a even greater chance for me to get out of Auschwitz, get out of the death camp. Since obviously they're not in any rush to kill me right now, so I'd wait and survive. All right, so that's gonna be the it for our literature circle from the Book Buddies.
Let's see.
Thank you.